Got some new wall decor for Christmas. Looks pretty cool. What's going on, everybody? I'm Tony. Welcome back to the Honda Grom race bike build. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at safety wiring, because safety wiring is awesome. Safety wiring is actually a massive pain in the ass, but it's important, and I don't know of a race organization out there that doesn't make you do it. So, what is safety wiring? Essentially, your motorcycle has some things that, once in place, they've got to stay in place. Safety wiring makes sure that that happens. A couple of things that no matter what organization, no matter what motorcycle, that have to be safety wired. Think about your oil drain plug, your oil fill plug, anything oil related absolutely has to be safety wired. Brakes, typically caliper bolts, they'll need to be safety wired. Axles, keeping your wheels on is pretty important, so those will need to be safety wired as well. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna throw the time lapse on. I'm gonna get the bike wired up, everything from oil drain plug, front caliper bolts, and then we'll take a look at everything that was wired up on this, and then I'll actually pull in the Ninja 300 as well, just so you can see maybe some of the slight and small differences in wiring a little bit bigger bike. I'm almost done wiring up the Grom, but I wanted to take a second just to take a look and go over what we've done so far. So one of the first things that I did, as you saw, I wired up the grips here. Now, wiring grips is not something that has to be done. It's just something that I've done over the last couple of years because there's a nice confidence that you feel when you're going down the track knowing that your grips are actually going to stay on. As silly as that sounds, it's a fact. If you've been following the build for a little while, you'll know that when I picked this bike up, it actually had a lot of really nice aftermarket accessories pre-installed on it. And one of those accessories just so happened to be the Katako clutch cover. Now, the reason why a lot of people get this clutch cover is because it allows you to run an aftermarket oil cooler out of these two bolts right here. Now, obviously, I'm running it stock, so I had to wire those bolts up to make sure that they stay in place. So those are wired up, grips wired up. One of the things that I've still got to do that's probably the most important thing that I get done is actually wiring up the oil drain plug. Still got to get that knocked out. Probably going to do that off camera because I got to drain the oil, pull the plug, wire the plug. It's pretty much the same thing that you've already seen. It's just a different bolt. Moving to the front here, looking at the front brakes. So I drilled and wired up the front caliper bolts, and believe it or not, on the Grom, that's pretty much it. I've still got to do the axles as well, but after I knock out the axles and after I knock out that oil drain plug, this bike will be complete. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the camera real quick and run a time lapse. I'm going to pull the bodywork off of the Ninja 300 and just kind of show you some of the different things that are wired up on the 300 versus the Grom. It's water cooled, so outside of oil, I've also got to wire up all of the radiator based stuff. So we'll take a look at that and we'll go ahead and call this one quits. And just like that, you got the bodywork off of a race bike. Gotta love it, so easy. All right, so just real quick, just wanted to show you some of the differences maybe between, you know, the Grom and then the Ninja 300 in terms of just getting it wired up, getting it safe and ready for the track. So just a quick overview. Just like the Grom there, I've got the grips wired up on the 300. This is actually a little bit better representation of what I was talking about over on the Grom. So you'll notice I've got my caliper bolts wired up, they're wired to one another, and then tying directly to the front axle. That's what I would like to do on that bike, but I got to try and figure out the whole axle slider thing. So keeps the brake where it needs to be and keeps the front wheel where it needs to be. Now, with the Ninja 300 being water cooled, I got to keep all of the coolant stuff where it needs to be. Like, got to keep that safe off of the track. So starting at the top here, I've got the radiator cap wired up. I've got all of these little, like these metal clamps, metal worm clamps. Those are all wired up, which is, you know, nice. It's not necessary. You don't have to wire all these up. The radiator cap has to be done. Moving down just a little bit, you'll notice that the oil filter also has one of those worm clamps on it. It also has to be wired up to the bike. On this, it's got an, I guess that's an O2 sensor, an O2 bung. I'm not running any kind of like power commander or quick shifter on this bike, but that's wired up, so that can't come off, go flying down the track. That would be horrible. Oil fill, that's wired. And some things can be quick release like that. Like I can have those little quick release pins. That's one of them because you're constantly changing your oil on a race bike. Moving down just a little bit, you'll notice that my oil drain plug wired directly to a little fin right there on the engine block. And that's not it, but those are kind of the big things. So you've got oil, you've got water, you've got brakes. On this bike, if I kind of slide back just a little bit, like I've got my exhaust bolt safety wired up just so that that doesn't come out. This was really hard to do, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but I've got the rear calipers wired on there as well. I think it had to be done. It was just really, really difficult. So that's kind of it. If I move over to the other side of the bike, I guess really last but not least, this bike is filthy, you know, wash it. But I've got the rear axle wired up as well. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'll get the Grom finished up. I'm not super sure about what's going to be coming next as far as videos are related. Season is fast approaching and I got to get the bikes ready for the season, but I appreciate you stopping by. I really, really do. I'll try and have another video out here in the next week or two, but until then, I'll see you later. Thank you so much. Bye.